How are you?
I'm great. Doing well. It was a little bit of a cold day out there, but saw some baseball and ready to talk about it, man. How are you?
You also look like that you're about to go to Boston and hang out with Ben Affleck, and you're about to go like rob like the what's the Green Monster? What's the baseball Fenway Park? That's what you look like. Has anyone told you that you could pull off a Ben Affleck movie?
I think you were the first. I've been told many things. That's maybe one of the nicer things, so I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, in this conversation tonight, we're not going to beat anybody up. I can't tell you what we're going to do, but we're going to have fun. That sounds a little bit something like what Ben Affleck in that movie, I forget what it's called, would say.
Checks out for me. Yep.
All right, John Eads, WAFB, who was at the scrimmage this weekend. Let me ask you this before we get rolling. You were at Jay Johnson's press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right, wrong, or indifferent in thinking this way? I felt a coach during that press conference who was highly confident in the team that he had. Am I wrong in feeling that, like, Jay was kind of, hey, man, we're going to be good? Like, I walked away from Jay's press conference saying, oh, man, he really thinks his team could be Omaha bound.
I think he's a confident guy, but he's earned that because the guy never sleeps, right? He's always out recruiting. He's always out doing things to make this team better. You know, like last year, the season was kind of headed in a very bad direction, and he got it back on track, and darn, they almost hosted a super regional, went to Omaha. You know, like, he's a great game day coach, but he works 365 days out of the year. If there were more days, he'd probably work them. If there were 25 hours in the day, he would work them as well. So he should be confident because he knows the amount of work he put in this offseason to get these transfers in here, and he knows what kind of team he can possibly have this year with all these ingredients, these freshmen, the returnees, the guys he got out of the portal. It's just a matter of putting it all together. But it seems like he knows what the vision is based on the things he learned last year, how he can find that winning recipe sooner and squeeze the most out of this team that he can, whether that be, you know, a trip to the NCAA tournament or Omaha.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I felt like the whole time, you're right. Look, he doesn't put in sleep. I mean, the dude literally tweeted a tiger emoji at 2:37 a.m. one morning. I mean, like, the dude literally will do whatever it takes to win, and you got to love that for him. But you're right. He felt confident, and I think he feels confident, you're right, because of the work that he puts in. Look, confidence comes from preparation, right? Like, I always literally talk about this when you go into a test or you go into a midterm or you go into a final. You don't worry about it because you know that you've studied, right? Like, you know that you know the material, so you're not worried about it. Jay knows that you're right, that he has the ingredients. But then now the ingredients, look, man, we're about 2 weeks away here from the season kicking off. I mean, I know it's on Monday, but, man, Friday will be here before you know it. It's 2 weeks. Here we go. John, you've been out there. What's the biggest thing that you've seen so far from this team? Is there something that's standing out to you?
I think what I like is that they're coming together. I see a lot of guys forming those bonds and relationships. I know it's a lot of new players. There's only 12 guys back that played in a game for this team from last year. Other than that, you got guys from UC San Diego, Pearl River Community College, Utah Valley State, schools I've never even heard of. So, you know, you kind of wonder, no disrespect, I'm just saying, you know. You kind of wonder about how they'll gel and mold as a team because it's hard to build those relationships year after year. You know, it's not like college used to be where you come in with the guys in the freshman class and you graduate with them when you're seniors, fifth-year seniors, whatever it is. So I've liked that I've seen a lot of relationship building and, you know, guys picking each other up vocally, whatever it is. But I have my questions. I have my doubts. From a pitching standpoint, you lose Gage Jump. You lose Luke Holman. Those guys are not going to be easy to replace as starters. Jay Johnson said outside of Paul Skeens, those are the best two pitchers he thinks he's ever had in college. Not to mention Griffin Herring, who probably would have been a third starter, but obviously the ace out of the bullpen. You got to replace him. From an offensive standpoint, and this is broad strokes, you're losing two of your top three power hitters. Hayden Travinsky, Tommy White, they combined for 40 home runs. You have Jared Jones back, but who's going to replace that power? There's no one obvious that's sticking out. So what I'm seeing is a completely different team, and they're going to have to win games differently this year. It's going to be more of a sum of the parts kind of thing. Jay Johnson mentioned the movie Moneyball. You know, it's kind of a popular, almost cliche thing for coaches to do, to talk about that movie. But that's what it's going to have to be this year, manufacturing things, using the depth and all the different pieces he's brought in to put together the winning recipes on a game in, game out basis. Every player is going to have a couple responsibilities. They're going to have to execute those responsibilities perfectly every game to get this thing to come together in each 9-inning sequence.
John, that's a hell of a roster when it comes to like talent v talent. It's still you're money balling necessary. And I heard when he said that too, and I'm like,
yeah,
my guy, you literally have 12 guys that have hit above 300 in college.
Yeah,
right? Like, I mean, so then there comes that second part, and you're right. And you know what's crazy about baseball too? Like Daniel Dickinson comes in as a preseason All-American guy that's been at second base. So you're pretty much moving Steven Milan because of what's going on with Danny Dickinson, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's advantageous. That's good.
Right. The thing that I look at with everybody saying, well, what's going to happen in the SEC with Danny Dickinson is, well, first off, this is not football. This is not basketball. Like it's a different sport. But the second thing that I look at, I saw two dudes from the Ivy League hit above 350 at Texas A&M last year.
Right.
So baseball's just a different beast when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. But listen, let's talk about that because you talk about the sum of the parts. They stole more base. I retweeted every video I saw of yours this weekend, okay?
Appreciate it.
And it literally comes back because I'm like, dude, are you not seeing like Chris Stanfield stealing bases, Danny Dickinson stealing bases? Yep. I'm like, no, this is not Jay Johnson baseball that we've seen. Now, they can hit for a ton, but it's going to be a completely different way about going about it. The way that I would think about it is it's like A&M a year ago in a lot of ways, right? Where meaning you're not going to have like multiple guys with 15 plus home runs.
Yes.
You're going to have a lot of them with 12 though. And that's going to be a big thing. Now, let me ask you this. You talked about some things that stood out. Is there a player that stood out to you this weekend?
Man, there's a lot of them, honestly, which is a good
let's go through them.
Well, Chris Stanfield is the guy that really, and there's so many, I don't want to pick one, forgetting about the others, but Chris Stanfield, every time I've seen him, he's impressed me. You know, he's got power. I've seen him hit home runs. I see him hit 2-out singles. When he gets on the base path, I mean, this guy is like the Flash. He's so quick. I saw him steal bases successfully, aggressive base running. Like if they do a hit and run from first, he could probably make it all the way home in the right situation. And then defensively out in the outfield, he tracks the ball well. He's got good hips. I saw him make a diving play back in the fall. Like he's got everything you could want in an outfielder. And people kind of sleep on his offense. He hit 276, but he led Auburn's team in multi-hit games. So he can bring some of that pop. I would love him as a leadoff guy. I know Michael Braswell excelled in that role down the stretch last year, but he's a guy that can get on base and then do some real damage when he's on base. I mean, you can make it easy on him and have Jared Jones hit a home run. He could just jog all the way home. But Chris Stanfield's a guy that I think right off the rip I got to mention.
Look, it's funny you say this. Literally last Thursday before the scrimmage started, I went out there like 2 times. Yes, 2 times during the fall. One with me and Chris Phillips, and then me and another buddy went out there. He was the best player on the field that day. That day, he was the best player on the field. It wasn't remotely close. Like, I think he went 3 for 4. He had a home run there. He had an absolutely insane catch.
He had a double.
He had a double. I mean, like, it's insane. Here's another thing, too. Look, man, I literally saw Jay do this with a guy that struggled in the SEC a year ago, right? And Michael Braswell.
Yep.
Dude hit above 310.
Yep.
Like, the dude hit 314. I mean, am I getting that again in Chris Stanfield? Somebody with SEC experience that's coming over to LSU that could do that again. And if he does that from the leadoff spot, you're going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I think so because he got good experience over there. I think he's going to come in and take one of these starting outfield jobs. Now, there's a lot of guys out there, you know, Jake Brown, Ashton Larson, Ethan Fry. Like there's 7 or 8 guys that they could deploy, which Coach Johnson says speaks to how well they've recruited. And he does not mind rolling that depth. But Stanfield's a guy that, to me, needs to be starting most of those games based on what I've seen. And it's not a situation of, all right, he looked good on this day. Seriously, it's been a consistent thing. He's making an impact in some form or fashion, defensively or offensively or special teams, if you want to call it that, when he's stealing bases and stuff. Let me mention one more outfielder that I know. Derek Curiel, the freshman, and that shouldn't come as a surprise because this guy's playing in a minor league system right now. Man, Very talented. He added 13 pounds since the fall. He's gotten bigger. Coach Johnson said he needed to do that. Today, he had 3 catches, one against the wall. Cade Arrambide was like inches away from a home run, but he had one where he had to flip his hips, get back there and catch it. He came up to catch a shallow bloop that could easily be a single, and then he took away what could have been a double from, I want to say it was Ethan Fry in the left center gap. That could have been dangerous. So he's going to bring a lot to the table from that left field spot in terms of turning extra base hits or singles into outs. Coach Johnson mentioned their Biloxi scrimmage. He had like 2 or 3 catches where he flipped his hips and things like that, that you just don't see from freshmen and really not from college-level outfielders. And then from an offensive standpoint, guy's a double machine. I've seen him hit many doubles. He had an RBI single today in a late-game situation with a guy on second base. So I think he's another guy that as a freshman, he's just too good to keep off the field.
Jay did mention, too, in the press conference that at minimum, and this is per him, I think what he's saying is he's going to get these upperclassmen a shot here, and then in late game situations, Derek Curiel's coming in. That's literally how I read it, and he made no bones about it. I mean, go back and listen to him. He literally said, and it's the ultimate Jay Johnson. What did he do last year? I think it was Paxton Kling that would come in 7th, 8th, 9th, whatever it was. Yep. Hey man, better defender. We're putting him in center field. It's going to happen. I think it's that kind of situation. But you're just trying to give upperclassmen a shot before he takes over completely. Do you feel that right now going into the season?
Honestly, I don't, because he was their starting left fielder in Biloxi, their first game against Samford. Like, he was in the starting lineup, you know? And every time I've seen him out there, he hasn't been coming off the bench. He's been out. I think he's too good. You need him on the field at all times for his defense. And then the pitchers have said when he's at the plate, he really makes you work. You know, every pitch he evaluates and takes some really good level at bats. So I think everything together, he's just too good to keep in the dugout over somebody because they're older than him, as unfortunate as that is.
Dude, they're loaded out there. I don't know. I do not know what they're going to do, and that's a great problem to have.
Right.
Another freshman I want to ask you about, who basically was on your timeline the entire weekend.
I know who
Cade Arrambide.
Yeah. Man, he's a stud. He's wild.
Is he your day one starting catcher as a freshman?
Well, Luis Hernandez was their starter in Biloxi, and I know I'm putting a lot of stock in that. I'm just sharing information because, you know, we're not at practice every day. I think they have 3 guys they really like, and I think the top 2 are Luis Hernandez from Indiana State and then Cade Arrambide. And with what he does, it wouldn't surprise me if he worked into that role. He could get it day one. Like, he does everything well. I've seen him have a couple wild throws on bunts, throwing to first and things like that. You know, situational stuff. But at the plate, man, as I said, he was this close to hitting a home run today, multiple RBI, like very, very close. Took Ashton Larson all the way back to the warning track. And then yesterday he had a 2 RBI double to the left center gap. He's got pop. He's got power. He hit 360 in the fall with 6 doubles. He's got a good arm. He threw out somebody at second base who was stealing today. He's vocal. You know, he's present as a catcher. So I think he's another guy. All these freshmen, they're instant impact guys. This is why you were given the #1 impact freshman class by, I think it was Baseball America, whoever it was, because you have freshmen that are going to impact you winning games this year. And I think Arrambide can do that. If he's not catching, you could bring him in as a designated hitter when you got guys on base to get something sparked. He can be your designated hitter, pinch hitter, designated hitter, whatever it is. And Blaze Priester can do the same. But Luis Hernandez is another guy that has caught really well, has a good arm, and has some pop. He had 23 homers last year with the Sycamores, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be tough to play Arrambide over Hernandez, but this is catcher. You can rotate them. You know, they have more depth than they had last year. So if nothing else, that's going to help them a lot.
And Luis Hernandez, I mean, I literally told the guys that clip our videos to put them on YouTube and all that. I was like, can y'all clip how many times he says Luis Hernandez?
Me?
No, not you. Jay.
Yeah. He loves him.
Dude, absolutely adores the kid.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, dude, you know he said Luis Hernandez 19 times?
I believe it, and that's good picking up by you, because usually when you're getting talked about and you're mentioned by the coach, you're heavily involved in what's going on. you know?
Dude, he said Luis or Hernandez or Luis Hernandez in some context 19 times.
Yeah. I mean, based on what I've seen, there's a reason for that. You know, he really impressed me in the exhibition games, and he's a guy that could have been drafted but didn't. So I think that they're very happy to have him. He didn't catch much last year at Indiana State. They had a really good catcher. Jay mentioned that in his press conference. But to me, it seems like it's been pretty seamless, that transition. And he brings the offense to the power and the pop. So some of that power they're going to need to replace White and Travinsky.
Let's go to the staff, the pitching staff. What have you seen from them? What do you like? What do you dislike?
Yeah, so, you know, in theory, you brought in guys and you return guys that can fill the holes that you need, in theory, right? Like you lose Jump, you lose Holman. Okay, well, you get Ianson out of the transfer portal. I mean, you bring Cade Anderson back. So you bring in William Schmidt. I mean, there's a lot of names, you know, and in theory, these guys.
Brought in Zach Cowan from Walford.
Yes, Zach Cowan. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the roster right now. Connor Ware's another guy. He was their best pitcher in the fall, coach said. And my point is that, in theory, these guys are filling these holes, and they're ready to go right away. I'm just not sure about that, though. You know, like right now, who are you confident in being your Friday night starter? From what I've seen, the only guys that I'd be confident in 100% are Cade Anderson and Connor Ware. And Ware's coming from the JUCO level. He's very good. He's looked very good. But pitching on a Friday night in the SEC is a little bit different. Cade Anderson looked good in Sparks last year when they brought him in the SEC tournament. Some of those bigger games, not the Tuesdays against Xavier or whoever else, Rice, whatever it is. But he hasn't started an SEC game, you know, and extended yet. So in theory, they have answers. They have guys. They have good stats, good numbers where they come from, but they haven't done it yet. So I have my questions. But I think that they have plenty of options. So if one's not working, they have more that they can go to. I think they're very deep. They're very versatile. And I've seen a lot of different guys in a lot of different situations. So I think it'll be a little bit better than last year. I don't think it's as top heavy, though. I think the problem last year was you had three really good ones: Jump, Holman, Herring, Guidry as well. But after that, you didn't really have a lot of proven guys, which is why they lost so many games on Sunday. And they struggled in those Friday and Saturdays in the middle when they had to take their starters out and go to the pen.
Yeah, and even Gavin. I mean, Gavin got rocked last year. I mean, they had – remember, it was God bless his name. I was literally thinking of him, Will Helmers.
Yes.
I mean, brother, Will Helmers was your main guy going into at the end of it.
Should have been the whole year.
Well, if you would have told me a year ago that Will Helmers would be on the mound against North Carolina to close out a game and would dominate, I'd say either number one, he had just had a massive leap, or number two, we're in big trouble.
Yeah. Well, maybe not, you know.
I don't, you know, that's just always interesting. Chase Shores kind of got touched on a little bit. Thoughts?
Yeah. You know, take it with a grain of salt. He's coming back from Tommy John. Physically, that's difficult. Mentally, that's difficult. The staff was ready to play him if they made it to Omaha last year, which is crazy. And they wouldn't just say that for no reason. But from what I've seen, and I've seen him many times since last September, whenever they started fall ball and they had open scrimmages, just a lot of ups and downs. You know, like 1 minute he's throwing a wild pitch, 1 minute he's walking two straight batters, but then the next he strikes out 3 in a row, you know? So a little sporadic. It's there. You see the flashes, but the command and the control, for whatever reason, just haven't been cleaned up. And when he's on the mound, there's a lot of talking. The catchers, everybody in the dugout, let's go Shores, you know, like nonstop. They're trying to mentally, like, stay positive in his head. And maybe that's part of the problem, is that mentally he's not back to where he needs to be quite yet. So they're trying to help lead him on. I think he can get there. But that's why I'm saying it's kind of like Thatcher Hurd last year. Everybody kind of assumed Thatcher Hurd was going to be the Friday night guy because he came back and he looked good in Omaha. Chase Shores, big recruit, big guy, looked good as a freshman. It was just an injury, no big deal. Well, no, it's a pretty serious injury. Gage Jump came back and had a remarkable season off of Tommy John. But it's not a given.
He was your ace. Let's call him what he was. He was your ace.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was the guy with the season on the line in the last game of the year. He was on the mound. That was remarkable. That is not a given. It's not a given that you come back from surgery like that and dominate. So what I'm trying to say is that I've seen it, but I'm not 100% confident, if I'm Jay Johnson, that he's my Friday night guy right now.
It's interesting. Who has been the best on the mound that you've seen?
I think the two guys I mentioned before. I think Ianson's looked good. I haven't seen him in a little while, so I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket. I'll hope to see him this week on Friday, Saturday, whatever it is. Connor Ware and Cade Anderson are my two. I mean, Cade had 6 strikeouts in 3 innings in his start this past week in his scrimmage. Every time I've seen him, he's looked good. He's looked comfortable. He got a lot of great experience last year. He said when we spoke with him at Media Day that obviously growing up in Louisiana, it's your dream to be a starter and a Friday night starter at that. So he got that internal motivation, I think, to be that guy growing up, going to St. Paul's High School, wanting to be the alpha dog for the pitching staff this year. And Connor Ware, as I said, from Pearl River Community College, a JUCO junior, and I've talked to some people, Koki Riley from the Advocate, we were talking today. He said that he's spoken to scouts and they love him. Jay Johnson loves him. He went on record. He's gone on record multiple times saying he was the best pitcher they had in the fall. And in Biloxi, Samford could not hit him. And I've seen him in the inter-squad scrimmages, a lot of strikeouts. So Connor Ware or Cade Anderson are my 1 and 2 right now, Friday, Saturday.
You know, the funny thing about Connor Ware, with the ruling coming down from the court system on JUCO players, I mean, he technically doesn't have only 2 years. He technically now has 4.
He's out. He's the one and done. He's not using. He's healthy and has the year that everyone thinks he can have.
I'm just playing.
He's out.
Playing. Yeah, I'm just playing.
That's interesting.
Saying. That is very interesting. John Eads, WAFB, is our guest. I got to ask you one more thing about baseball, and then I want to move to some football with you, actually, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Very quickly. Anything else that we didn't touch on here that you kind of stood out to you? I mean, look, John, you were out there for 4 games. I mean, that's a lot. There's got to be a lot to take away. What is there anything that I missed that you were just like, hey man, like this is something I need to address?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot to take in. I'll say that. I got 2 things.
Okay.
Let me start with this. Today, I thought it was interesting. Sometimes you show up and you look at the scoreboard and you're like, what the heck we got going on here? The score's like 90-60. What is this scoring system? Today, they did 2 different sets of this. They started the game in the 7th inning, tie score 3-3, go win the game. And Jay Johnson mentioned it in his press conference. This year's team, they always stress fundamentals. It's going to come down to these close games, where you need to go and manufacture a run and then get 6 outs, 3 outs, 9 outs, whatever it is to win the game. So I think it's interesting that they're working on these specific situations where it's a tie game, go win it, right now. And guys have looked good in these situations, getting singles, stealing and hitting a single hit and run, getting to third, sack fly, bunt, boom, you're in. And Jay Johnson thrives as that kind of a coach where he's giving guys specific duties. And he said this himself, and having them execute those specific duties to win the game. So I think what they're preaching is what they're doing in practice, and they're going to be very ready for a lot of these close games. And I think that they've got what they need to execute and pull them out. So it's this year, it's not going to be a woo, Tommy White, big grand slam, and the crowd goes wild, sexy plays like that. Now, there could be some of those. It's going to be more of Ashton Larson takes 12 pitches and walks. Chris Stanfield, bloop single to left, double steal, 3rd and 2nd, bunt, run scores. It's going to be more of that, just guys stepping into the box, having a job and doing it. It's not going to be sexy, but it's going to be winning, I think. And what do you care more about? Winning. On that note, a lot of people, I've been putting clips out there of Stephen Milam at short, at third. He's going to be on the left side of the infield. It's just a matter of where. For whatever reason, people are doubting Stephen Milam and his ability to throw the ball from short. What are we doing? What about what you've seen Milam do since he's been at LSU gives you any reason to doubt that man?
I think it's because the only thing that I could walk away from with, and I don't agree with this at all. I don't. I guess because Bear had to pick one out of the dirt, they're like, oh, he couldn't make that throw from short. You know what I'm saying? I know.
Out of 27 in a baseball game. And Now, I could have phrased what I said differently, but my point is you can't jump to conclusions when you're not even at the scrimmage or at the practice based on a social media clip. And you really think Stephen Milam can't make a throw from short? Are you out of your mind? Come on.
I think that's dumb. I thought him and Braswell, for what I saw, which wasn't much other than stuff that you had posted, the only thing that I saw is them making really good plays. Him and Braswell. And I thought Braswell looked fine at third base.
He does.
You know who else I thought looked fine at third base was Pearson.
Yeah. John
Pearson.
I think he's going to be a stud, man. He's really shown some flashes. I'm not sure what his impact will be this year. I think it will be something. But I think a year and a half down the road, he's going to be one of the next stars of this team for his ability to hit, but also defend, man. He doesn't look like he'd be a great defender just because he's a bigger guy.
He's the Cajun Pablo Sandoval.
Exactly. But he moves well, man. He's got a good glove. Braswell has that athleticism, has that playmaking ability. And I think it's going to help him that he now only has to worry about one side of the diamond. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to make him even better. The one thing I'll say, this is the last thing I want to talk about regarding Braswell. I don't know if you heard this when he was in media day.
The injury.
Yes, why he struggled last year. Mentals and knee tendonitis in both knees. That's why he came out hot in the second half of the year, because he got healthier. So I wonder, because a lot of his struggles were in the first half of the year, defensively, offensively, if that really plagued him that much, and if he would be a plus shortstop, fully healthy. With that said, Milam is just an absolute star. Grounding or fielding grounders, moving laterally, shifting. He can do it all. So I think you really can't go wrong with either of those guys at third or second. And they've been changing it literally every inning at these scrimmages. Milam at third, when they switch them, and they've both done a great job. Haven't seen any slip-ups personally. Maybe it throws in the dirt, but Jared Jones is an All-American, and he picked it. And you know what? It was still an out. Would you rather have a sexy play that's not an out or a nasty play that is an out? Probably the latter. That's it.
I love this little fired up John Eads I got right now.
Man, just because people like be thinking they're like experts in all these things based on one social media clip. It's like if you watch Jaden Daniels throw a pass and it's overthrown. Man, this guy sucks. Are you stupid? This man has thrown 1 million passes in his life, and you make an opinion based on one pass. Like, oh, get out of here. I'll talk to y'all in April after Stephen Milam pulls off a Derek Jeter-esque play.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is for sure. All right. Football with you right quick. I know that spring will be here soon enough, but LSU in the portal, number 1 class, part 247. I mean, a lot of changes at LSU football-wise. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. I think from a broad strokes perspective, they're going all in on 25. You know, like the resources they've invested, they need to hit on this portal class. They haven't hit on the portal classes before. You know, they've gotten a couple diamonds in the rough. Obviously, Jaden Daniels was a stud out of the portal. But by and large part, their transfers have not been plus guys. So they need to find the happy medium between those two. And I really like the class. But same with baseball. Theoretically, these guys fit the system. They have responsibilities. They come in and thrive. But it's not a given. So I think they've invested a lot of resources into this, and it has to succeed, because otherwise, where do you go from here? You know, you're bringing in top 10 classes every year out of high school. You brought in some good portal classes before. You're kind of putting all your eggs in this transfer portal basket here.
Yes.
So if this doesn't work, what other solution do you have? You had 3 finalists of the 5 for AP Rookie of the Year in the NFL. And you couldn't even make the playoff. What more? What more do you need? I don't know. So it's a good class. I like it. I like the guys they brought in. They did well. They missed on a few, but by and large part, they got what they wanted and needed. Now they got to go and freaking win games, man.
It is a prove-it year, brother. It's a prove-it year, man. I mean, like, you can't – I mean, look, nobody should be happy with 8-4. And look, I'm going to keep saying this. You're talking about the portal. I'm with you. Look, you brought in 4 defensive linemen. You can't tell me that you thought that unit was good when you brought in 4. You brought in a hybrid that rushes the passer from the interior. You brought 2 edge guys, and you brought a guy that's 350 pounds to plug up the middle. Yep. You cannot convince me that you think remotely that you're close to where you want to be on the line of scrimmage defensively. Brian Kelly's given up 250 rushing yards per SEC loss at LSU. It's not good enough.
No.
And so, look, you could not run the football a year ago. So you can have the Jaden Daniels, the Malik Neighbors, the Brian Thomas, my brother in Christ. If you cannot line up and run the football, you're going to get your ass whooped. And that is just the bottom line.
That's where it starts.
John, it's where it starts. Think about this. Think of every national champion in the last 6 years. They all have a 1,000-yard rusher, and they're all top 10 in rushing.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. Mm-hmm. All of them were in the top 10 to 15 in total defense. Like that, don't tell me that there's not a winning formula. That is the winning formula. Look at Penn State. Look at Ohio State. Look at Notre Dame. Look at why Georgia and all those other teams didn't make it. Why Texas couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't make it from second and goal from the 1. They were scared to run up the middle because they couldn't. Yeah. That's the point that I'm trying that I would make too. Now, there's an interesting part about this. John, I don't know outside of 2022 that I don't know anything about this team. I know about Garrett. I feel like I know about some pieces. As a whole, I know absolutely dilly squat about this team.
Well, there's a lot of questions, you know.
That's not a good place to be.
No. With that said, though, I do like what they return. I think a lot of guys stepped up and proved themselves a little bit last year, and now they come back and they'll try to elevate their status. You know, Aaron Anderson, Xavion Thomas, obviously Nuss, Caden Durham. Defensively, they did okay. I mean, getting Harold Perkins back is big. Obviously, what condition is he in? What position is he playing? That's a big question. Sometimes, though, you know, the unknowns aren't such a bad thing. I feel like there might be more unknowns about this team this year than there were last year. And sometimes those things that you're sure about aren't so sure. Like we all thought the offensive line with 4 of the 5 guys back would dominate this year. That didn't happen. So sometimes it's nice to be pleasantly surprised. And maybe that'll be the case this year with all these new guys they're bringing in and putting this thing together, you know?
Yeah, Josh Thompson, Braylon Moore, those guys they brought on the offensive line, they got to be big. All right, John Eads, WAFB. Good evening, good sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell everybody where they can find all y'all's work.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Anytime. I mean, man, you put in the legwork. I got to bring you on to talk about it, man.
Just having fun, man. Some of the best memories I've had since I've been down here have been baseball related. You know, the A&M home series.
Yes.
Hoover was incredible. And then Chapel Hill was really fun, you know, that whole ride. So I'm looking forward to making more this year. So trying to go into year 2 of being around for it with as much information as possible. So, but yeah, you can give me a follow on social media, John Eads, WAFB. And I do a podcast on YouTube called Game Time with John Eads on our WAFB YouTube page. So you can check us out there. Doing a lot of baseball content like you, Blake, now that the season's a couple weeks away. And it seems like a lot of the attention is turning that way. You know, you can't post anything on social media without riling people up one way or the other, good or bad, about baseball right now. So I think people are ready.
and look, I love women's basketball, and I think that, you know, other than flashes from Trey'Dez Green, which, by the way, holy shit.
Yeah.
Trey'Dez Green. Dude, I don't – I'm going to say it. I probably shouldn't. I'm going to go ahead and say it. He's the best athlete at LSU right now, top to bottom. I don't give 2 Rudy Poots when anybody tells me. This man literally blocked a 3-point shot, went down the court like he's a left-handed LeBron, and yay!
I didn't know he was left-handed even. That was nuts.
Dude, my man, yes. Yeah. Left-handed that thing. Ha!
Yeah.
And then you know that you got forced to you when you hear the net go poosh.
Yeah.
At the end of a dunk. That's when you know you bringing that thing down. That's what she said. But that's when you know.
Classic.
That's when you know you bringing it down.
Yeah.
That dude is a freak. Dude, their tight end room, speaking of football, I'm sorry to keep you longer than that room is going to be insane. Mm-hmm. They got to get a tight ends coach. I don't know where they go there. Maybe an analyst. I have no idea. I have no clue what they're going to do. But my God, they got serious talent there. Throw 14 the football and get out of the way.
Yeah. Donovan Green, Bauer Sharp, right?
Yes. J.D. LaFleur.
J.D. LaFleur. Yeah.
Y'all going to go ahead. It's like dodgeball. Y'all go ahead and literally underestimate a LaFleur. Y'all do that. See what happens.
I'll tell you what, man, the bowl game got me excited between Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Trey Dez, obviously, Xavion. Like, they got some dudes, and then the field general's back to lead it. So,
well, and you're adding Barry and Brown and Nick Anderson. What happens there too, man? I mean, that's going to be a big deal. All right. I kept you too long, John Eads, WAFB. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.